Do it. The people demand your suffering.
People always demand suffering. Okay, so my theory topic today is what is to be done, specifically relating to Leninism and his ideas of the Vanguard Party. And just a little background, the text came out in 1902. It's Tsarist Russia. It's not a happy place to be living. And basically, people are kind of divided on two camps, with the people who actually want to organize a revolution and overthrow the Tsar and institute socialist policies, or people who just kind of want to make things better and slightly more democratic and liberal, and that to that extent. So I'll just go ahead and get started with what I've prepared. What is to be done can be seen as achieving two goals. The first, a polemical onslaught against the opportunistic Marxists of the day, and the second, laying the foundational principles for a revolutionary party. Before I begin, I feel that it will be helpful to revisit some concepts of Marx and class theory. Then I will address the problem of the opportunists, and after that I will address the blueprint that Lenin lays for the Vanguard Party. To talk about class theory, capitalism can be described as a social relationship between two classes of people. This relationship is determined by a person's relationship to the means of production. These classes are the bourgeois class, who own the means of production, and the proletariat class, who own nothing. The proletariat, out of sheer necessity to exist in the world, must sell the physical and or the mental use of their bodies to the bourgeois class to obtain a wage so that they can purchase the food that they eat or pay the rent or the house that they sleep. In the early days of capitalism, working conditions are egregious. Men, women, and even children are forced to work in factory conditions that were dangerous, filthy, or in excess of 10 hours a day. It was through these conditions that trade union consciousness is born. The struggle to improve working conditions found workers organizing themselves into unions to gain leverage over the capitalists. It is through the spontaneity of the working class that they find themselves engaged in struggles. However, this is a quote from Lenin, and all my quotes will be coming from What Is to Be Done, so you can find this text on Marxist.org if you would like to seek it out. I highly recommend it. Taken by themselves, these strikes were simply trade union struggles, not yet social democratic struggles. And when Lenin talks about social democratic policy, revolutionaries in theory, what he really means is a communist, because in that day you couldn't really call yourself a communist because it was outlawed. So you had to take more incognito terms. So they marked the awakening of antagonisms between workers and employers, but the workers were not and could not be conscious of the irreconcilable antagonisms of the interests of the whole of the modern political and social system. It is the trade union struggles which the economists see as an opportunity to engage the workers. By helping the workers organize strikes to gain concrete results and improve the welfare of the workers. The general problem that can be seen by engaging trade union struggles with the intent to improve working conditions is that it can be seen as simply addressing the symptoms and not the problem, the symptoms of capitalism, as where capitalism is the problem. It is very common for the social democrats at this time and period, which Lenin is writing, to simply, the social democrats meaning the actual trade unionists, because there's kind of a break. A lot of people say, hey, we're social democrats, but really what they are is economists, or as we'll later find out, other things. It is very common for people in this time period, which Lenin is writing, to simply accept Tsarist Russia as a fact of life. So the economist's position is to try to make small reforms here and there, and to make things slightly better and more democratic. Lenin speaks ill of this. Another quote, "Since there can be no talk of an independent ideology formulated by the working masses themselves in the process of their movement, the only choice is either bourgeois or socialist ideology. To belittle socialist ideology in any way, to turn aside from the slightest degree, means to strengthen bourgeois ideology. Trade unionism means the ideological enslavement of the workers by the bourgeoisie. Hence, our task, the task of social democracy, is to combat spontaneity, to divert the working class movement from the spontaneous trade unionist strivings, to come out from under the wing of bourgeoisie, and to bring it under the wing of revolutionary social democracy. By engaging, and only engaging, the working class, the pursuit of economic struggles excludes all possibilities of other political struggles, as it is necessary to respond to the workers, that is, to be subservient to spontaneity of the workers of the trade union struggles." This is where the problem of economists lies, because they're responding to the spontaneous uprisings of the masses, but they're not trying to lead them towards anything past Tsarist Russia. It's just, hey, your working conditions are terrible, so what you really need is to work maybe 8 hours a day, or maybe you just need a raise. It's never an attempt to actually seize the means of production and institute socialism and basically get rid of capitalism. And so the term Lenin actually kind of uses against these people. It says, you know what, you guys are the rear guard of the movement. You're always following the masses around trying to find out what they want rather than trying to lead them into socialism. Another form of opportunism seeks to create opportunities for itself through the use of terror, that is, violent acts that are used as a means to shock people. They hope to make a situation in which the masses would be awakened from their everyday lives and join the struggle. Historically, these can be seen by groups like the Weather Underground, who use bombs to destroy symbols of capitalism as a means to shock people into paying attention in hopes that they would do something. That's something really they never clearly defined what really they wanted. Groups like the Situationists were determined to use a counter-spectacle to awaken the masses into a revolutionary activity, being the fact that if you create something that's so shocking, they'll kind of be like, oh, what's going on? I don't know what I should be doing, or something to this effect again. We can even see terror being used today, but in a more toothless form against political celebrities. What happens is you see a lot of people get pied, and when people throw pies, it's like, oh, well, that'll sure raise another spectacle, and people will actually find out, why did this guy get pied, and want to do something about it. These are kind of problematic in their own rights. But the problem here is that these acts of terror don't work. Furthermore, it is a way to avoid the real hard work that must necessarily be done in order to organize a successful revolution. The advocates of terror, sometimes referred to as propaganda by the deed, fail to realize the masses already find themselves acting spontaneously pursuing trade union struggles. Lenin is especially scornful of acts of terror. Advocates of terror, as a means for exciting the working class movement and of giving it a strong impetus, it is difficult to imagine an argument more thoroughly disproves itself. Are there not enough outrages committed in Russian life without special excitants having to be invented? On the other hand, is it not obvious that those who are not and cannot be roused to excitement even by Russian tyranny will not stand by twiddling their thumbs and watch a handful of terrorists engage in a single combat with the government? And so Lenin then goes on to basically ask this question: what is it that terrorists and economists actually have in common? And it's the fact that they're opportunists. The economists and the terrorists merely bow to different poles of spontaneity. The economists bow to the spontaneity of the labor movement, pure and simple, while the terrorists bow to the spontaneity of passionate indignation of intellectuals who lack the ability or opportunity to connect the revolutionary struggle and the working class movement as an integral whole. We can see this as truly common thread is the lack of organization, that is the theoretically advanced members that maintain a party discipline and is able to work that, sorry, my notes are a little scrambled, but it's to make real revolution happen. There's a mass movement based on the class interests of the proletariat. The economists seem content with becoming the rearguard of spontaneity of the worker. The terrorists cannot bridge their gap with the insurrectionist intentions to incorporate the working class. Another quote from Lenin: political activity has its logic quite apart from the consciousness of those who, with the best intentions, either call for terror or for lending the economic struggle itself a political character. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. And in this case, good intentions cannot save one from being spontaneously drawn along the lines of least resistance. These methods have been proven to fail time and time again. We must understand this and not fall prey to the pitfalls of opportunism and the subservience to spontaneity. Another quote from Lenin: critics and economists are degrading social democracy to the level of trade unionism. And when the terrorists are strongly advocating for the adoption of tactics as a plan that repeats the old mistakes, and such a time to confine oneself to profundities of this kind means simply to issue oneself a certificate of mental poverty. Now that we've discussed what is not to be done by revolutionaries, we can now discuss what should be done. Well, what is the correct path for social democrats to take? What does Lenin mean when he calls for a vanguard party? Lenin explicitly states that social democratic politics are, in fact, not trade union politics. When the workers get together to strike for better conditions, they are merely addressing the symptoms of capitalism. It is the goal of the revolutionaries to make a strategic intervention into these trade union politics and bring the workers' class consciousness. And as a quote, class consciousness can be brought to the workers only from without, that is, only from outside the economic struggle, from outside the sphere of a relationship between workers and employers. Working class consciousness cannot be genuine political consciousness unless the workers are trained to respond to all cases of tyranny, oppression, violence, and abuse, no matter what class is affected. This means that the workers' struggle must not simply be towards bettering working conditions, We must be working to end working conditions for all.